And I call this immunity for sale and the adverse effects of man-made immunity because it's a man-made mess, right? We know that, and I'm going to give you some examples other than this example, but we know that women who had contracted diseases, these infections in childhood, had natural immunity, whatever that means. It's not just memory globulins. We know that because people with agammaglobulinemia, meaning they had the inability to make memory globulins, would get these childhood infections and then would be immune for life. So we don't know the whole picture of what makes us immune, but we know that it's imparted transplacentally and some part in the breast milk. And so we know that, what we've done in many of these childhood infections is shifted the burden of disease risk to the very young and the much older, because the very young aren't getting the normal maternal, benefit of transplacental immunity. Because, if we're just looking at the immunoglobulins, if you had rubella or measles as a child and you had a child, your child would come out of your womb with a year of protection for the most part for those diseases. And if you only had a vaccine and you responded, you were a responder and it didn't wane, that child would have only about 6 months. Now, 6 months difference doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot because we know that first year of life, the immunity is really just developing. And so it is a more delicate period. So we've shifted burden of disease. We've made this mess with these vaccinations by making our 1 years and under much more susceptible to infections they would normally have had after a year, year and a half, or 2 years. We're also making older people more susceptible if they've never had real disease and they've had only vaccine strain-induced immunity, quote unquote, because we know that it wanes and it's not what it was as advertised. 1 measles shot for life. That didn't turn out to be true. Chickenpox, 1 for life. All these things. So we know we've made a mess of immunity, and we also know that immunity is for sale because, things that we've known for years, that having specific childhood infections in childhood is protective, has shown to be protective for other things later in life, heart disease, certain tumors, right? And now we're using these engineered strains of polio and measles to fight tumors, but you have to pay for them. You could have gotten them for free. So that's why I'm calling it immunity for sale. And these childhood infections were rites of passage, right? So they help your immune system develop. The maternal-fetal antibody connection was prolonged, or was normal, I should say, and the other ones are shortened. And viruses are actually drivers of genetic expression. So like our bacterial flora that we live symbiotically with, we live symbiotically with viral material and viral expression. And 8%, according to PFAFF, P-F-A-F-F, I'll have his name up there, 8% of our genes are viral, and it could be more. I think we're really just understanding how viruses have affected